Almost got carried away there without the mic being turned on. Hello, hello. Hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. My name is Chris Good. I am the Director of Product Marketing here at Tabnine. Very excited to be chatting with you folks here today. Have a slightly different session than we've run previously, focusing on something a little bit new, some gray area, right? We're talking about metrics and getting value today out of your AI code assistant. So, for folks who haven't been here before, this is a very interactive session. Feel free to ask questions, stop me. We can dive deeper on any topic. We're also going to be doing a live demo about halfway through the session. We'll shift gears. So, without further ado, let's get started. And feel free to drop a hello in the chat, introduce yourself. Yeah, let's go. So, independent surveys are clearly showing widespread AI adoption amongst developers, right? In the 2024 Stack Overflow Developer Survey, the survey shows about 76% of developers are using or planning on using AI coding tools, and that's up from 70% the year before. And a strong 72% of developers hold this favorable or very favorable attitude towards these tools. And developers clearly recognize the benefits. 81% cite an increasing productivity as the top benefit, of these AI dev tools, followed by a speeding up of learning and improving of efficiency. So, in other words, a vast majority of developers see AI code assistants as a key to getting more done in less time. And that's not really surprising, right? Because AI is fundamentally changing software development. And the productivity gains from using an AI code assistant for engineering teams have been incredible. And that's regardless of what tool you're using. Whether it's an AI code assistant or an LLM, these solutions have real value and are helping engineering teams deliver exponentially faster than before. And specifically at Tabnine, the increase we've seen our customers come to expect ranges 30 to 50% increase in productivity gains across the full set of tasks that constitute the entire SDLC. Now, Gartner is also reporting that by 2028, 60% of these enterprise IT operations will be supported by AI agents. And that's up from less than 5% in late 2024. So what are the real world impacts we're seeing of these agents? And there's empirical evidence from McKinsey that demonstrates this sort of profound productivity gains through AI-assisted coding, with development speed nearly doubled and significant improvements in task reliability, especially in complex work. And then in a controlled study, writing new code was nearly 50% faster. And documenting code for maintainability, for example, took only half the time with an AI assistance, right? An AI-driven software development platform. Even these complex tasks saw benefits. Developers that were using AI were 25 to 30% more likely to complete high complexity tasks on time compared to those without AI, right? So these efficiency gains translate into higher throughput, right? Faster lead times, more work completed, which is a core DORA productivity metric. And if you're not familiar with DORA, do not worry. We're going to be going over that here a little bit later in the presentation, but we do have some slides covering that. Now, notably, code quality, right? Bugs, readability, maintainability was as good or slightly better with AI assistance. So addressing quality and maintainability concerns. In short, AI tools delivered speedups that outperform past advances in engineering productivity while keeping code quality high. Now, excuse me. One of the most important questions engineering leaders ask about AI isn't just does it make developers faster, but does it improve code quality and maintainability? And I should say, depending on your tool, but the answer is, according to recent research, yes, right? So McKinsey also did another study where developers were using AI coding assistants had a 53% higher success rate passing all, let's say, unit tests, and reviewers rated their code as more readable, concise, and maintainable, right? So with statistically significant improvements. And McKinsey's latest findings reinforce this. So an AI-assisted developers code nearly 50% faster, and they complete high complexity tasks 25 to 30% faster and more reliably on schedule. And that translates directly into delivery, stability, and reduced work. Now, zooming in on maintainability, teams using AI-based code review agents saw a 50% drop in unplanned work, right? And that's because AI is flagging these issues earlier in the process before they came production problems. And when it comes to long-term technical health, AI speeds up tasks like refactoring, documentation, and test creation, helping teams actively reduce their technical debt while accelerating delivery. So the story isn't just about speed, it's about shipping cleaner, safer code faster. Now, moving forward, faster output isn't the only benefit, right? We saw developers reported feeling happier and more fulfilled when working with their co-pilots, right? Or their agents, I should say, because these aren't co-pilots. They shouldn't you shouldn't have a bit of control. You should have full control over them, right? They are your agents, not your co-pilots. Now, McKinsey's study observed that developers using generative AI were over twice as likely to report higher overall happiness, fulfillment, and sort of this flow state of work. And in fact, developers that reported this flow and focus on meaningful work jumped from a 45% without AI to an 88% satisfaction with AI assistance. And by automating, right, these rote tasks and grunt work, if you will, AI tools free developers to tackle creative challenges, right? The stuff that they went to school for, that's why they're developers, right? Which really improves morale and reduces burnout, especially in a time like today when everyone's working so fast and furiously on producing the next innovative technology. We need to consider some of the more human outputs of or effects, if you will, of AI, right? And that's improving morale and reducing burnout. And this aligns directly with another framework that we'll talk about here, and that's called SPACE, right? And this is specifically in the satisfaction dimension, right? Indicating better developer well-being and work enjoyment, which can boost retention and ultimately performance. So the next piece is going to be reducing technical debt, right? We've seen high code quality and low technical debt are crucial to business outcomes, right? Impacting stability and future velocity. And here too, AI tools are showing promise. The Stack Overflow 2024 survey found that 62% of developers cite amount of tech debt as their top frustration at work, right? So twice as many of those are frustrated by any other issues, right? By aiding in code refactoring and documentation, these AI code assistants, right, can help chip away at this technical debt. And in McKinsey's experiment, AI-assisted code actually scored marginally better on maintainability and readability, right? So indicating that these tools can also improve code quality, or at least at the bare minimum, prevent quality from downgrading despite the speed gains, right? And AI can also auto-generate, right? Tabnine can also auto-generate documentation and enforce consistent patterns, right? So we're reducing the accumulation of hidden debt, if you will, right? So for example, AI reduced the time spent on code refactoring tasks by 30%, and on writing documentation by 50% in one analysis, right? And accelerating maintenance activities that might otherwise be deferred. So all of this means that teams can maintain high code health and avoid piling up as much tech debt and improving long-term maintainability. Excuse me, slightly under the weather here this morning. Now, real engineering value from AI goes way beyond just productivity. It's going to include sustainable, measurable improvements that, in quality and developer satisfaction and long-term maintainability. So always measure AI's impact across multiple dimensions. Productivity alone isn't enough. Focus on achieving balance, right? Ensuring productivity gains don't negatively affect code quality or developer morale. So prioritize metrics that align closely with your organization's strategic goals and long-term sustainability. I remember reading this. Yeah, absolutely. Just for the record, I see this question pop in here. Could you please share the link and the name of the McKinsey report you're referring to? Absolutely. If you shoot me a message on LinkedIn, I am happy to share any and all reports that I have been referencing during this talk, or will be referencing during this talk. Right. So I always, think back to this survey I saw maybe 6 months ago that was around JetBrains engineering managers either not knowing how to measure developer productivity, right? All of these seem great, but how do we get there? How do we actually track this and measure this? Folks don't know how to measure it, or they just don't know if they do, or they don't know how, right? Or just don't. So there's this huge gap in my opinion. Saying I use AI or we use AI in our development workflow isn't just enough anymore. You need to have metrics and know how to report and where to find those metrics, right? And effective AI adoption demands careful measurement, right? So avoid these superficial metrics or vanity metrics, if you will, that you see floating out there, like lines of code, for example. Instead, focused on balanced measurements, right, advocated by DORA and SPACE, such as deployment frequency or cycle time or defect rates or even developer satisfaction, right? This balanced approach ensures that genuine improvements in productivity, quality, and developer well-being are being made. Now, moving to the next piece here. Excuse me. What are the best ways to track business value of an AI code assistant? And it's in my opinion very easy to be dazzled by these big numbers, right? Like lines of code written or frequent commits. But however, as engineering leaders, our goal must always focus on delivering genuine value, especially to our customers. Vanity metrics can mislead us, encourage teams to generate superficial gains at the expense of quality and long-term sustainability. We need metrics that capture both productivity and impact. So if you remember, or if you don't know, Goodhart's law, once a measure becomes a target, it loses its effectiveness as a measure. Instead, we should constantly pair our output metrics with quality and outcome metrics, right? So like defect rates, user satisfaction, and the actual completion of customer requested features, for example. Now, it is crucial to differentiate between output, like lines of code or tasks completed, and true outcomes, like defect reductions and enhanced customer satisfaction or successful user stories delivered, right? Raw output metrics alone don't guarantee genuine value creation, right? So teams might write extensive code, yet deliver features users neither need nor want, right? So we should always connect our output metrics directly to meaningful business outcomes, right? Ensuring that our productivity gains translate into real world improvements. Now, the DORA metrics, right? This is the DevOps research and assessment metrics. Provide excellent, reliable benchmarks for assessing software development performance, right? And they include lead time from commit to deployment, deployment frequency, change failure rate, and mean time to restore service. Now, an effective AI integration should help reduce lead time, increase deployment frequency, and at least maintain or ideally improve the change failure rate and MTTR. And regular monitoring of these metrics over extended periods of time ensure that these improvements are sustained and not just short-term fluctuations. Now, using DORA effectively means monitoring your metrics consistently over time, right? Think months rather than days. We aim for steady incremental improvements across all metrics. For instance, Tabnine can accelerate bug fixes and streamline pull request reviews, substantially decreasing lead times and enhancing your team's responsiveness. And regular reviewing these metrics allows you to adjust your strategy and ensure that your team remains agile, responsive, and aligned with best practices in software delivery. Now, the SPACE framework reminds us that developer productivity isn't just about activity, right? Excuse me. It's also about satisfaction, efficiency, and collaboration. So including metrics like ENPS, Employee Net Promoter Score, and tracking qualitative feedback ensures that productivity enhancements don't negatively affect or impact developer morale or collaboration, right? So I always like to say, keep an eye out for these subtle warning signs, like a decreased team interactions or increased frustration, right? Which is fair for any new technology, right? I'm biased. I think Tabnine and I think our customers would also, I know our customers would agree. We have a case study that references this specifically, but with any new tool, there is always going to be a struggle in adoption, right? It's something that's new, it's different. That's the same for AI tools here. Now, specifically at Tabnine, we have some customers that feel that it is so easy and so intuitive, they just drop their junior developers in with Tabnine, and it's a sink or swim mentality. But no one sinks. Everyone ends up swimming, right? So regular feedback loops help capture developer sentiment, and they ensure productivity gains and improvements are sustainable and positive. So let's talk about Tabnine's real world impact, right, on productivity, on quality, and the developer experience as a whole. Now, this slide speaks to what matters most for engineering leaders in regulated industries. And trust, performance, and proof. And Tabnine isn't just another code assistant, right? We're an enterprise-grade AI development platform, purpose-built for organizations where compliance and security and control are non-negotiable, right? So let's start with the numbers here. Our customers are seeing a 73% automation factor, right? Which means nearly 3/4 of their repetitive or routine coding tasks are now fully handled by AI. And that's real measurable efficiency being unlocked. And with Tesco Software, a global enterprise, we help drive a 32% increase in developer productivity, right? Directly tied to their ability to ship features faster without compromising quality. And they also reported an 84% lift in code quality compared to generic LLMs. And we know code quality is where technical debt either starts or stops. So most impressively, we've helped doubled their test coverage, right? A critical factor for engineering confidence, compliance, and speed. And on the right, you're just going to see a few more of enterprises trusting Tabnine, right? And these aren't startups experimenting with AI. These are mature, enterprise engineering organizations like GE Healthcare, like AstraZeneca, like Huck Coburg, operating in industries where the margin for error is zero. So Tabnine earns their trust because we deliver AI that's context aware, controllable, and built to integrate into the full complexity of enterprise SDLC. And these teams aren't gambling on AI, they're scaling with it confidently and seeing real value. Now, Tabnine allows developers to produce noticeably more deliverables without the extra effort, right? And this is achieved by our context-aware suggestions, right? That sort of autocomplete boilerplate routine code, they let engineers focus on the unique logic of their application. And by deeply integrating into IDEs and supporting 600 plus languages, Tabnine meets developers where they work, right? Saving time across a wide range of tasks. And this corresponds to higher velocity and throughput and a direct boost to the accelerate metric, right? It's shorter development cycles without requiring additional headcount. So let's break down what we're looking at here because this slide captures a lot of what makes Tabnine uniquely enterprise grade in the realm of AI software development. So at the center of this platform architecture is Tabnine's context engine, right? And that's sort of the brain behind everything we do. And unlike black box models that make guesses based on outdated or generic data, right, might cause rework, might cause tech debt, Tabnine's context engine ensures that every AI interaction or every AI action, whether it's generating code, reviewing it, or validating it, is grounded in your real world context. So here's how that works. There's three pieces. There's multi-layered context ingestion, right? We're not just looking at the code in your open file. We're drawing from your entire workspace, your Git repositories, project documentation, Jira issues, terminal outputs, even knowledge bases and architecture diagrams. And then we have semantic and vector memory. And these two types of memory work together to ensure precision. We extract relevant entities like functions and APIs and dependencies. And we create this live, ever evolving knowledge graph, right, of your system. And this lets us reason about what exists and how it works together. And then the last piece is context prioritization and assembly. And this is what really separates us from generic tools. Excuse me. We don't throw everything into the LLM and just hope it sorts itself out. That would be silly, right? Instead, our engine dynamically assembles a precise, enriched content package that aligns to the task at hand, whether it's code suggestions or a test plan or documentation. So why does that matter? Right? Because in an enterprise environment, your code changes daily. Your architecture is layered and interconnected, and your security and compliance and performance standards are non-negotiable, right? So Tabnine's context engine ensures that AI respects those boundaries. So you get speed and value and efficiency and productivity without sacrificing trust or privacy or security. And at the bottom, you're going to see where all of this comes together. Right? These are Tabnine's AI agents. Generate, test, document, review, fix, and soon to be edit, right? Edit being that multi-file, multi-step flow, but of course, always having a human in the loop. All of those are powered by this rich context or real-time context engine. So every output is policy aligned, architecture aware, and grounded in the systems that your teams actually work in. So when it comes to how we do this, right, this is how we increase the quality of those AI code recommendations. And that's done through personalization. And there's 4 levels of context. There's local context, connection to your code base and knowledge bases, coaching based on your standards, and then customization of the underlying models as needed. So starting from our first level of context awareness, as we were talking about previously on that architecture slide, this is sort of everything that we look at, right? And there's about 15 points. So current files, open files, current selection, imported libraries, the list goes on. And there's also some other secret sources of information that we pull within the IDE. Can't reveal the secret sauce entirely here, but we take in a lot, right? And then the second piece is connection to your code and knowledge bases. Tabnine connects to your other software development tools, including your code repositories and systems like Jira, right? So think GitLab and GitHub. Perforce is a big and new one. And well, not new. We all know that's old, but new for us. And in Bitbucket, for example. And then systems like Jira, which then let you leverage or lets AI leverage your existing work to deliver more precise, more contextually relevant, better recommendations, again, without sacrificing privacy. And then, of course, not the last, but when you get into coaching, you get explicit guidance on how to control Tabnine and how Tabnine behaves. And that operates in the pull request as well as the IDE. So as Tabnine generates code that complies, getting mixed up in my head here. So Tabnine will generate code that complies with all of your organization's standards and policies and guidelines. And Tabnine then enables customers to codify their institutional knowledge, right? For example, your accepted standards for software development or unique best practices or corporate policies into rules that can be applied at code review or at the pull request or within the IDE. You provide the parameters you like to see your code comply with via plain language, and Tabnine converts that into a set of comprehensive rules. You can check the PR against your IDE and your IDE against your set of rules. It'll flag deviations, offer guidance and support and suggested edits to fix those issues, right? So this enables you to generate code that is of higher quality, more secure, and follows your best practices at scale. The way that I like to think about this is our code review agent or our coaching agent allows you to augment your best developers, your best engineering managers, your best code reviewers' knowledge, and make it on demand for every engineer using Tabnine at your organization, right? So really honing in on code quality and scaling back tech debt. It's awesome. It's a sweet feature. Now, of course, the last step here of personalization is the fine-tuning of models, right? That's that ultimate level of personalization. But I only say, it's the juice isn't necessarily worth the squeeze. So think of those really hard to read, poorly documented code like Spark, Verilog, Ada, COBOL. That's where fine-tuning really comes into play, right? You have to remember that your code base changes daily. And as it does, or when it does, your fine-tune model theoretically becomes obsolete. So you would have to fine-tune continuously, and anyone who's done that knows it's a long road, it's exhausting and laborious, right? And can be expensive, more importantly. So not that fine-tuning isn't bad. There are edge cases for it, specific use cases, but don't think that is the first jump that folks need to make, right? There's usually those other levels that you can go through, right? The context, the local and workspace context, the connection, the coaching, all of that can add or usually get you to that point that you're looking for without having to fine tune an underlying model. So let's just talk about coaching really quickly and why that's important, right? Because even a generic any AI code assistant, even a generic one, and any LLM can generate code, but really only Tabnine can validate that code and stop tech debt to the level of sophistication that is needed for enterprises, complex enterprises, to not push more tech debt into their production environment. So this is a report that looked at GitHub projects, excuse me, and Copilot generated code. It also examined GPT and Codium, and they found that on average, 30% of code snippets generated by these tools have security weaknesses. And these security weaknesses were diverse and related to 43 of different CWEs. And 8 of the CWEs were found to belong on the current recognized 2025, I think, or 2024 CWE top 25 list, right? And that's a problem, right? You can't scale code generation if you're scaling security weaknesses, technical errors, and bugs. It's going to tank metrics and scores when you have to do remediation work and rework. Now, this is how we solve that for you today, right? And this is supposed to be a GIF, but the GIF is not properly working here. This is our Tabnine code review agent, right? We previously talked about, and I think we all understand how it works, right? But there's 2 ways to really train this data or train this agent, right? And you can input your rules via natural language into the admin UI, which we'll get to here in a second for the rule set. And at the same time, you can also point Tabnine to, let's call it a golden repository, right? Whereas we call it golden repository. And that's an area where you find your best practices, your best code being written. It's your sort of gold standard for how you should write code at your organization. You can point Tabnine to that repo, and Tabnine will analyze and create a rule set from that, right? So now you have a fully customized and fine-tuned code review agent and coaching rules engine to your organization, right? And it's reviewing code in the pull request. It's reviewing code within the IDE. And soon Tabnine's just, it's going to move, or in the terminal, and soon it will be actually within your IDE. So you're just going to be able to generate code that matches your standards from the get-go, even prior to the pull request, right? So by using AI to refactor and generate documentation, teams can systematically reduce the sort of toil of maintenance and avoiding compounding legacy problems, right? So when you have tech debt, which nearly half a developer's time is wasted on tech debt and maintenance and going back and fixing, right? According to industry reports, Tabnine can help automate these tasks. In this case, code review and subsequently doing remediation work. And by accelerating cleanup work and ensuring consistency, Tabnine enables developers to write cleaner code and pay down debt continuously, right? And that ultimately improves this long-term maintainability. So we're very close to the demo. I promise we'll get there shortly. Just a few more slides. The next piece that you have to worry about, though, here is future-proofing your AI software development platform, right? And we give you complete control over your AI infrastructure to do that, right? And this is really important because many of our customers are developing their own LLMs. And as we've seen with the rise of Llama and Quen and DeepSeek, the LLM's arms race is far from over, and you're going to want flexibility. And you don't want to have downtime having to work on integrations or switching gears with a new model. So with Tabnine, we have a deep expertise in leveraging and optimizing LLMs for software development tasks. And we make a variety of LLMs available to our customers out of the box. So this flexibility really gives you 2 key benefits. You can trust that you will always have access to the latest and greatest models, and you have full control, not just over the models in use, but how you connect to them, right? You already have a private endpoint with a leading model provider. Great, we can support that. Deploying your own open source model on a platform like Bedrock, we can support that. You want to run Llama or Tabnine in your air-gapped environment, we can do that too, right? So with Tabnine, you're always in complete control over your AI infrastructure. And ultimately that control allows you to really hone in and focus on metrics that you care about, that are unique to your organization, that are really delivering value, not just having to be stuck with lines of code. So total privacy, flexibility, and control is at play here, right? You can deploy Tabnine however you like. Of course, you can deploy us via SaaS, but you can also deploy us VPC. You can deploy us on-prem, and you can deploy Tabnine in a fully air-gapped environment. And what's super cool about this is within a single company, you can have multiple deployment types, right? SaaS, on-prem, VPC, or air-gapped. It's really important to have that complete control over your data privacy and performance, right? Some teams might be working on less sensitive information. You can stick them on SaaS. Another team that needs to be locked down, they can be on an air-gapped installation. But all of them can work off of the same team, right? That same coaching engine or that same rules engine. So as we like to say here, any agent can write code. Ours earn your developers' trust and provide real world value, right? And we know what the issue is with LLMs and generic AI code assistants and generic AI, agentic AI software development. And the real issue is that they lack this context and they give you generic answers. They generate more code and more tech debt. And using any of them today requires you to trade off between privacy, protection, and performance now. And we don't believe you need to make that decision. And at Tabnine, we eliminate the trade-off between privacy and performance and protection. You can theoretically get it all here. And the way we deliver on that is using these powerful LLMs, layering our advanced context engine for personalization, and combining that with AI agents that are fully human in the loop, right? Giving you complete control over their behavior, their actions, and keeping your engineers in the pilot seat, continuously delivering value to the organization. Because remember, these are not your co-pilots, they are your agents. So we have a good idea of why Tabnine, how to track metrics, what metrics matter, right? Let's just seal the deal here with Tabnine and wrap it up. We built Tabnine for mission critical engineering, right? That means more than just suggesting code. It means being deeply accountable to your developers, aligned with your organization's standards and protective of your most sensitive IP. So we're controlled. We're accountable to your devs. With Tabnine, your engineers are going to stay in control, and we'll provide full visibility into every suggestion. It's backed by references, explanations, and validation against your standards. And nothing ships without human approval. So this isn't black box AI. This is a transparent, explainable AI that your engineers trust, adopt, and find real world value. It's also grounded, right? It's onboarded into your organization. Tabnine doesn't just understand programming, it understands your code base, it understands your architecture, your guardrails. It runs inside your environment, adapts to your coding practices, and follows policies with real-time context and enforcement. This is AI trained to think like your team, not just a generic model guessing from the outside, right? And then the last piece here is it's secured. It protects your sensitive IP, and most importantly, Tabnine protects what matters most, your code and your data, right? Our solution runs fully within your perimeter, whether it's on-prem, air-gapped, or a private VPC. No external calls, no third-party inference, zero data retention policy, just total control over your IP and zero exposure to shadow AI risk. This is what enterprise grade AI looks like, right? With Tabnine, we eliminate the need to trade off between privacy, performance, and protection. You can get it all here. These are not co-pilots, they're your agents, built for engineering teams where trust and value isn't optional, it's mission critical. And it's not just us tooting our own horn. We've been recognized by leading analyst firms. Most recently, Gartner recognized us in our critical capabilities report for AI code assistants. And in looking at the 12 major providers in the space, we ranked first for 3 use cases, and we ranked a very close second for the other 2 of the 5 use cases. We're also ranked by, or top ranked by, Everest and OMDIA. So it's, again, not just us tooting our own horn here, but let's jump into what you can do with Tabnine, and we'll show you how, you can use Tabnine to achieve a lot of those metrics we talked about earlier today, right? How Tabnine can help with DORA and SPACE, right? Increasing that productivity, satisfaction, accelerating delivery, and so on and so forth. The list goes on. Okie dokie. So let me move this down here. Bear with me for a second while I get my screens together. Okie dokie. So let me pull this guy up. Awesome. All right. So let's start by going over the Tabnine UI that folks are going to interact with. Sort of each of the agents and form factors you'll find Tabnine along the way. Now, I do apologize if there are any questions. I am operating on a handful of screens and a million tabs, so I'll be flipping back and forth between StreamYard and the comment section and doing the demo. So it might take a second if there's some lingering questions in there. Appreciate your patience. So let's go over this UI that folks are going to be interacting with first. So when you open up your ID, in this case, I am in VS Code, but again, we support all major IDEs, the entire JetBrains family, Visual Studio, NeoVim, and Eclipse. Yeah, the list goes on. But you'll find Tabnine located here within this little play button, if you will. Now, clicking this button opens up Tabnine AI Chat. And there's a lot going on here. So starting at the top, this is where you have your switchable models drop down. For me, I prefer to use Claude 3.7 Sonnet, but these are the models that I have made available to myself as my own administrator. And the administrator remains in complete control over which models are available to their devs. Below that, you're going to have an ability to, or an area for prompting or querying, right? Use natural everyday language to type in questions, queries, prompts, and get back suggestions and answers. Now, below that, you'll see our context scope, right? This is where a developer can determine their scope on a query by query or chat by chat basis, right? Allowing folks to really fine tune and hone in on what they're trying to work with. You can determine, you can choose your current file, workspace, code base. You can even go into terminal and remote code bases. So remote repositories, folders within those repositories, and files within those folders within those repositories. And we'll get into that here shortly. Now, below that, you have the ability for at mentions. So think files, functions, methods, classes, blocks of code, right? You can get more specific and ultimately get better results. This backslash is where you'll also find our agents. Now there's a handful that come standard with Tabnine. These first 5: explain, generate, test, document code, fix code, code explore. The rest are ones that I've created, but don't worry, you can also create your own custom commands. So similar little mini flows that you find yourself prompt engineering day in and day out. Great candidate for a custom command. Now, next to that, this is where you have the as con. Let's say you have your UI is broken in your product. A table is not working correctly. Someone on your marketing team sends you a little circle saying this is broke. You can use that as context to theoretically go searching for that needle in the haystack, find the code quickly, and fix. You can also add new functionality as well. So let's say your UX or UI team wants to roll out a new feature, a new area of your application, you can just upload screenshots and use that as context to help design these feature pages. Now, to the right of images context, you're going to see this Jira icon. And this is where you can initialize our Jira agent, allowing you to implement and validate different Jira tickets. Now, we will get into that here shortly when we start our flow, but that is a cool one. Now, moving to the right of chat, you're going to see our test beaker, which is signifying our test agent. This area allows you to generate comprehensive test plans for your code, right? Where developers really struggled to achieve full code coverage or full test coverage, this makes it exponentially easier, exponentially faster, and ultimately allows you to have more trust in what you're shipping, that it's actually pressure tested and going to work. Now, let's see here. Moving into the actual files themselves, you'll notice that within each block of code, you're going to find what we call the Tabnine code lens. So you have edit, test, explain, document, and if there was something wrong, you would see a fix button here as well. And this is just a quick action way to reference those same agents that you saw down here that we built to do a lot of the heavy lifting out of prompt engineering for you. But again, just a quick way to access those same agents. Now, of course, with Tabnine, you also have code completions. That is where we started. So as you type Tabnine, let's see, in this case, it doesn't want me to write another rule, but it probably thinks 16 is enough, right? So it's gonna recognize my intent and ultimately provide a suggestion. In this case, I'm adding more useful info. It doesn't think I need 17 more rules or another rule being number 17. I would have to agree. So it's just going to close it off here with with an end to sort of this this message for me. Whoops. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So code suggestions, right? Auto completions. And that's for anything in Tabnine within your IDE. If you're writing test documentation, building an API, it doesn't matter. Tabnine's going to recognize your intent and provide smart suggestions. Now, above that, initialized with Command I on the keyboard, and I know that might be an issue for some of you JetBrains users. Don't worry, I've checked. You can remap. It's not going to be an issue. But Command I on a Mac pops up our Tabnine. Whoops. Quick command palette, right? So you have the ability at the top to use natural language. Below that, you can access those 4 agents: fix, document, explain, and explore, as well as reference code snippets, determine your scope, and determine your model if you would like, specifically for this interaction. So let's move forward. Let's go through a usual phase in an SDLC for a developer. Let's start with planning and onboarding into a new project, right? I'm a developer. I just got out of a call. I have to do some work with a project that isn't new to me, but just been a while since I've worked with it. So I could spend all afternoon reading and going through the documentation, or I could jump in Tabnine and I could use our Code Explorer, right? Now, Code Explorer is a project-wide agent. It's going to look at the entire project, give me an overview, key dependencies, structures, how to get started, and key features. It's also going to provide a list of follow-up questions, allowing me to dive a little bit deeper into what I am working with, right? Ultimately, speeding up that onboarding and learning experience or refreshing experience as a developer. So we can say here, let's find a good one. What are the main dependencies of this project? And how do I ensure that they're properly installed or updated? And it's worth mentioning, it looks like we're working with a fraud detection dashboard. If I couldn't get that from the name here. And let's see the dependencies. Awesome. Now, it's worth mentioning, you'll notice that Tabnine doesn't just do code suggestions. It's also going to give you terminal commands, right? So this is how we can install those dependencies and check for updated ones. And let's see our references. Perfect. Cool. So now we have a good understanding of what this application does. It might be some time since I've seen it last, but within 30 seconds, I now have full understanding of how this code works. So let's move forward. And you know what? Before we even do, let's say, okay, it understood. I understand what I'm looking at, but this area of the code is a little bit foggy to me. What you can use is our code explain agent, or explain code, excuse me. Now, explain code is selected code, right? Meaning that you can only select up to a file. It can only be file wide. But what this shines at, or where I use it most, is understanding blocks or areas of files that still are a little bit fuzzy to me. So it's a more granular agent that gives you an overview of that specific component in a little bit more depth. Now I have a great understanding of what we're working with and how it all works into the greater project. So let's move forward with building something, right? We're going to do creating. I have a ticket that was assigned to me from my engineering manager. The first one I'm going to do as part of my sprint this week to help update this application. So let's jump over to our Jira board. Now, a couple of things to mention here. I see 60 to-do tickets. It's a lot of tickets, right? That's probably a lot for a developer to have to sort through. It's not the case with Tabnine, right? I have 16 specific tickets to me, right, within Tabnine. When I click this Jira agent, this dropdown's only going to show, in this case, 2. Why is that? Well, it's only going to show the tickets that are assigned to me as the individual developer that is integrated with Tabnine and Jira. And it's also going to show the ones that have been active within the last 30 days, right? So it's not going to have a surplus of everything here. Now, just to confirm which, okay, we are blue and purple here. Let me see if this is blue and purple. So we're going to do V3. Let's jump in here. Say implement this ticket. Sweet. Now what Tabnine's doing is it's reading the acceptance criteria. It's reading the description of the ticket. It's taking in my custom behavior. As I can see here, I unfortunately like to follow TDD for better or for worse. My own guardrails, but you'll see here for every suggestion, Tabnine is going to provide a test for me to add in to make sure that what I'm building is actually what I want to build. Now we'll update this dashboard component with a new color scheme. It's also going to add documentation, which is exactly what I want. I have it outlined in a separate markdown file. Perfect. So then what we can do here is click apply. Now Tabnine is going to insert that code exactly where it should be, regardless of cursor location, regardless of current open file. I can hit accept after I review. It looks good. There we go. Let me check the references. Awesome. Now what we can do here is take it one step further. Let's validate this implementation. Validate this ticket. Sure, we've generated the code. That's awesome. But I need to make sure that I've done it up to the standards that we've outlined, or that my engineering manager has outlined and assigned to me this ticket. So it sees here we have good. Yep, this is green. Ensure proper context. Cool. And it's going to add some other recommendations or other improvements, if you will, to just make it a little bit better. But awesome. So we've generated new code, right? This is from a ticket that my manager has just assigned me. We've done it incredibly fast. Let's keep the ball rolling, right? So we need to test next. So we're going to actually jump over into a different platform here. Or project, if you will. And let's talk about testing. So there are two ways to sort of, I say, go about testing in Tabnine. There is generating a test from scratch, right? Which is incredibly easy to do. And I'll show you how we do that here. Let's jump into this one. Let's create a test plan. Is this the right? Yeah, generate test plan for code. Now it's going to prompt us to select our code that we want to test. And if I did have a test file, I could browse for it here. I do not. So we're going to create one. Now, the first thing you can do here is you'll see that Tabnine's generating a comprehensive test plan for me, right? With pre-built tests that it's suggesting in plain English, plain English, you can see here on the left-hand side. And it's as simple as clicking on that test. It'll generate it for you. And then I can insert that within the file quickly. Perfect. This looks good. We'll click apply. Awesome. Now this first test is in here. Let's do another one. We'll do this one as well. Just saved everyone from hearing a loud sneeze. Excuse me. Let's apply this one as well. So again, this apply button Tabnine, incredibly powerful, inserts that code exactly where it should be, regardless of cursor location, regardless of open file. Now, let's say that this is their suggested tests, right? Meaning that they're able to be refined. So let's say that this is partially the way we want it, right? We can always modify a test. So now let's go in and say, change from weak password to strong password. Now what Tabnine's doing is it's going to refine that test. It's going to polish it, and then generate a new test, which I can then apply, insert that within my test file. And then now I have a fully built out test file for me. That's going to work on testing this main.go file. Now, what's important is that, or we found, is that a lot of folks don't necessarily start from scratch, right? You often, especially in these enterprise organizations, the larger ones for sure, they usually have something already built, right? So with Tabnine, you can also use the test agent to build on top of current test plans, ultimately adding more coverage, code coverage, test coverage, getting you to that 100% target. So what we'll do here is, let's jump, that will stay in here. We're going to do a new test plan, generate test for code. We're going to select it. I already have a test file, main test.go, continue. Now it's going to go through that same flow again. It's going to generate that test plan for me. But now it recognizes that I have 3 existing tests already in here. And it's going to generate new tests that are outside of what's already been created, right? Ultimately, getting me to that full test coverage or full code coverage. And I encourage folks who are using the test agent, reiterate. Keep building and running it through multiple times, picking and choosing the ones that you would like. It saves so much time while still allowing testing to be personal and rigid, if you will. Rigid in the sense that it's stringent, I guess, is a better way of putting it. But okay, so let's keep chugging along here. One of the things that I want to show you that I think I might have skipped over would be, I want to show provenance and attribution, right? Because it's a cool feature that we have here in Tabnine, an important feature that helps ensure tech debt is not getting pushed and code quality is remaining high, right? And ultimately, that remediation work doesn't have to be done. So provenance and attribution is a feature within Tabnine as you're generating code or querying within Tabnine. It's going to check any suggested code for publicly visible code, right? And if there are any matches, it's going to provide the source code and the license attached to that code that Tabnine is suggesting. You can also then, as an administrator, take it a step forward, and you'll be able to implement censorship, which you can just outright ban, let's say, GPL licenses from entering your organization. I don't want to have any developer have any suggestions that show GPL code. So let's say we want to show me how to initialize brain fart and open telemetry tracer provider. Use Go as the sample. Of course, have to have some sort of unit test, which is good. All right. Now she's taken her time here, but should have some provenance and attribution attached to this. Awesome. Okay. Sweet. So let's look at the attribution that's attached to this code, right? We can see here, okay, there's a handful of MIT, there's Apache 2.0s, we have an EPL 2.0, that's okay. We can also go up here, this is a substantially larger one, but again, it gives your developers the ability to make more informed decisions. And soon we're going to be changing the UI to make this a little bit easier to scan. So it's just going to be bucketed by license type. And then you can see all the source code that's associated to that specific license. But again, guardrails helping enforce code quality and a reduction in tech debt. So we've done onboarding and planning. We've generated new code. We've tested that code. Hypothetically, let's say the testing all passes with flying colors. Let's work on some documentation. So let's jump over here and let's start generating some docs. Now, there's a handful of ways to generate documentation in Tabnine. We'll show sort of each step, and part of the I think the value with Tabnine is the freedom and flexibility to get value where your developers feel comfortable, right? If they want to use chat to develop documentation or create documentation, you can do that, right? You can create full file documentation using our document code, right? So I can select all of this code, use this agent here that comes pre-built in Tabnine standard, and it's going to generate Java comments for the for this first component here, being that's the only one that I actually highlighted. But again, if I wanted to highlight the entire document, I could do that as well and generate documentation for this entire file. The next way you can do it is you can use custom commands. So let's say you've created a custom command here, like I have, to create documentation that's very specific based on a markdown file that my team has as sort of guidelines. In this case, let's say for APIs, there's a very specific way that we want to write documentation. What you can do is you can use this one as well. Let's say we just highlight this block of code. We can run this custom command, and what it will do is, again, generate documentation that's based on my Java docs guidelines. And you can also tell that it's actually using this via the references. So it's not a hallucination. It's actually going and reading this file and using that as context. Yep. See, right here. So all you do is click apply, and then that code will be inserted exactly where it should be within this file, in this case now with improved documentation. Oops, I think I clicked the wrong button. But anywho, we get the idea there. You can also use our code lens, right? So clicking document at the top of each block of code allows you to generate documentation as well. So let us keep moving forward, and let's talk about maintaining, right? And refactoring old code. Whoops, keep hitting the wrong button here. Anywho, Tabnine is let's say excels at refactoring and maintenance, right? Which is, as we all know, if you were here previously in this session, that technical debt is where I should say a majority of developers spend a majority of their time, right? Is in remediation and tech debt. So that use case, that scenario, then is modernization, right? You need to have a tool that helps modernize and refactor legacy applications. So in this case, I have a old Java project. Now, I believe what version of Java is used in this program. I think it's Java 11. Yeah, there we go. So it's old. It's old. And my boss told me I have to modernize it, right? Or I have to modernize pieces of it. And they gave me a language or a package to use that I'm not very familiar with. Bubble tea. They want me to go take this Java app and translate it into a Golang application, and they want me to use bubble tea. I've never looked at bubble tea before. I have no idea how it works, right? How do I go about doing that? Well, what you can do in Tabnine is, of course, we have code-based connection, right? The ability to upload code bases as context or even use workspace as context as well, right? So what we're able to do is we've previously added in, let's say, a piece of this new rebrand that another team's already worked on, right? And that's our so it's built in Bubble Tea already. It's already built in Go. So what I can do is I can then reference that, right? We'll turn on code base connection and we're going to say, okay, I just got out of this meeting. I know I have to work with this repo. This team's already been working on it. I have to build it, but I don't know the language. So my first step is explain Bubble Tea. Now, without me ever leaving my IDE, and this can be done for any of the repositories, I'm having Tabnine explain this library that we have in our repository. Awesome. And it's again, not hallucinating. It's actually going and using and referencing the Bubble Tea files here, right? And we can actually go check that specifically within our references. You can see the actual block of code that it's referencing and the specific file, right? Whoops. So, okay, I have an idea now what my boss wants me to use to convert this Java application into. He wants me to use Go. He wants me to use specifically Bubble Tea. Okay, I now know what to do here. I have an idea. My next step is going to say rewrite. Let's start with the first one. Let's say rewrite main dot Java. We'll add another one in here as well, and generator dot Java using Go. Use and T. Now what we can do here is then referencing this connected external repository. I can use that repo as context to help rewrite my current application, right? In this case, I can do my task of converting this old Java app, modernizing it into a new Go Bubble Tea CLI application, right? Bubble Tea is just a TUI, right? Terminal user interface. But it'll ultimately take it from something that is, what's it called? Let me take it from something like this and translate it into something like this, where it's slightly more user friendly. Whoops. But again, I built this exact app, right? Converted it all using this old Java app. This is just sort of the first step of what I did, right? Modernizing this old Java 11 app into a new Go Bubble Tea CLI application, right? So again, Tabnine can be used to modernize and refactor old code into new applications. Now, the last piece we're going to talk about here today is our code review agent. So stop this guy. Let's go in here and we can say Tabnine, or excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up here. So coaching, the code reviews agent, right? Tabnine comes standard with a few thousand rules preloaded. Now, excuse the buckets here. These are not indicative of everything that's in this system, but it comes preloaded with a handful of rules, a few thousand that we've gathered, evaluated, and implemented based on software development best practices from leading voices in our space. A lot of folks that I'm sure you folks here on this call would be familiar with, right? So those come preloaded. But then again, we also give and encourage every organization to upload their own rule set, right? Either by plain English or by pointing Tabnine to a golden repo, if you will, and we can extract that rule set, right? But whether it's an extraction or just providing this plain English query or description, Tabnine fills in the rest, right? It'll create good examples, bad examples, severity, as well as a rule ID. And then all of these it's living and breathing, right? You can enforce by team, you can enforce by specific users. It's fully customizable. And again, this allows you to codify and augment your best developers, your best engineering leaders and managers' knowledge and make it on demand 24/7 for every developer using Tabnine, right? It's really going to put a plug in shipping tech debt and having, a bottleneck of lousy code reviews for your engineering managers to have to go through. Now, what does this look like within the IDE? So let's run it. We'll say Tabnine review repository. Let me exit out of this. Now what it's done is just sent all of these files out for AI code review, right? And it's going to compare them against the rules that we see here. Now you just have to run another command, and that's Tabnine review report -- last. And here we have now a full review of the code that would ultimately be getting pushed. But this is stopping it with those guardrails prior to me submitting that PR, allowing for me to intervene and fine tune. So it's going to give you the file, the violation, the line, the to-do, the description, as well as the code to insert. And that's going to do it for each one of these, right? And this is just within the IDE, or within the terminal, I should say. Now we can take it a step forward, and this is me submitting it to my my code reviewer. I can say, let's use terminal as context, and based on the code review output in the terminal, fix these issues. And then Tabnine is going to read through this output and then generate fixes that again match my standards, my quality, my guidelines, my best practices at my organization. So last piece here, moving back over, what does this look like from a PR point of view? Well, this is our engineer, Josh, or one of our CS or SEs, excuse me, Josh, if you are listening. And he's just submitted a PR to me. So I'm going to go, submit it 2 months ago, and I just never looked at it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to review it, right? So I can see, okay, this is the file in question. This is the specific block of code, and here's Josh's violation. And it's critical. Okay, and here's my to-do. Good to know. It's very useful. Whoops, don't want to. Let me go back here. Now, you can also commit suggestions. We can have conversations, right, based on this PR. And again, of course, Tabnine has an integration to GitHub PRs or GitHub Actions, right? So you have this PR agent that we're able to converse Josh, myself, based on its findings. And then at the bottom here, I have this summary report. So it's going to highlight my critical issues, errors, warnings, and suggestions. And then, of course, we can move forward, and Josh has since fixed and then closed these out, right? So that's really end to end. And Tabnine, I know we've gone a long way from metrics, but everything you've seen here today, right? Each of these agents, the ability to have that context and the accuracy that the context provides and the trust that accuracy brings, all plays a role, right, into DORA, into SPACE, right? Those big key metrics that I think folks really need to pay attention to, right? If an employee is having to do a lot of remediation work, their AI code assistant is stuck in loops, which you see with some of the more autonomous vibe coding tools out there, right? Your Codiums, your cursors, right? When you don't have a human in the loop, they can get stuck in loops, right? Or they produce tech debt or suggest code that's already been created. And that's ultimately going to lower satisfaction. It's going to lower efficiency. It's going to lower collaboration. Folks that are engineers dealing with that are going to feel more frustrated, right? And that's just on the SPACE side, right? You look at PR reviews, they're going to go either down or it's a lot of gray water, right? Where if you're shipping crappy code, you might have more PRs of higher quality or of lesser quality. You could also have less PRs because your developers are having to do so much remediation work that they're not shipping fast enough, right? So all of these agents, the context, the coaching, all plays a role, right, into the being able to succeed, right, when it comes to DORA and in these human space frameworks, if you will. So I'm going to take a pause here. If there's any questions, I know I've covered a lot today. We sort of went through a boatload, but this is sort of taking the cake. I think we're going to wrap it up at this point if there's no further questions. So let me pull this guy down, and we'll just sit here for about 30 seconds. Again, I appreciate everyone's attendance. Olga, if you shoot me a message on LinkedIn, I would be happy to share the reports that we were referring to earlier in this session. And as always, this will be live up on YouTube directly after this the stream ends, as well as all of our other previous streams. You can find them under Tabnine AI on YouTube. That said, we'll give it another 30 seconds. If there's no further questions, we can wrap things up. Again, I appreciate everyone joining in today. And appreciate everyone's patience while I'm a little sniffly and coughing. Under the weather, but gotta give the people what they want, and that's Tabnine office hours. So that said, it's been fun. I will see you folks next week. Thank you very much for stopping by. As always, we'll be here next week, next Wednesday, 3.5 hours earlier, 7 a.m. PT. We will see you soon. And if you didn't have any questions, or you didn't think or can't think of any questions right now, don't worry. You can always message me on LinkedIn. Just find me and shoot me a DM. Have a good week.